Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the financial system and basically what we are doing, we are covering the payment and settlement system, right? And these are the topics basically we have scheduled for the discussion. Like we will start with the introduction part, okay? Then National Electronic Fund Transfer, then immediate payment service, real-time gross settlement, unified payment interface, and the conclusion. Okay, these are the topics we have scheduled for the discussion. Out of these, introduction we have completed, National Electronic Fund Transfer we have completed, immediate payment service we have completed. Okay, and basically we were discussing about the real-time gross settlement in the previous lecture. And the topics we are left with is the unified payment interface and the conclusion. Okay, so this is the picture we have created together so far. Now let's start from where we have left in the previous lecture. Okay, like we have discussed the transaction limit in the previous lecture, which is minimum to maximum, usually $2 lakhs to 5 lakhs, right? Now what we are going to see, we are going to see the working hours. Okay, so RTGS transactions can only be initiated during the working hours of the RTGS system. The RTGS working hours are typically from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the weekdays and from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the Saturdays, excluding the second and the fourth Saturdays of the month and the other public holidays. Okay, this is the information, but this information need to be modified somewhere. Okay, these are the, you can see the official terms and conditions basically. Okay, but the RTGS nowadays is working 24/7. Means 24 hours, 7 days a week. Okay, that's how the RTGS system works. 24 hours, 7 days a week. Okay, here is one thing also which you are required to note it. It is known as the cutoff timings. Okay, like what we have seen that the RTGS is working 24 hours, right? As per the modification of information, which means that from 12 a.m. it is required to work on the 12 a.m. Okay, that's how it will be working for 24 hours, right? 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. But here is you can see little bit modification. Okay, usually in RTGS we consider cutoff timings. Which timings? Cutoff timings. Okay, so cutoff timings are usually from 11:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Okay, so it is totally for 1 hour. So this 1 hour is known as the cutoff timing. Okay, so why it is so? Why is this 1 hour is known as the cutoff timings? Okay, so basically if we talk about it in the generic way, so we know that in a single day we having only 24 hours, right? Which means that from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. is the one day, right? So suppose if there is a 12 a.m. on Monday, okay, so 12 a.m. of Monday will be continued till 12 a.m. of Tuesday, right? So in between of this, there will be a "24 hours. Okay. So if we go by this definition, suppose the transactions which will be proceeding on Monday, okay, they will be continue. Okay, but somehow suppose if some transactions are not, you can say, successful between this time period, which means 12 a.m. to 12 a.m., right? Some transactions are not able to get successful between these, you can say, the time period. So what will happen? Suppose the transaction was initiated on 11:55 p.m. on Monday, but the transaction was completed on 12:05 a.m. on Tuesday. Okay, so what confusion it will create? It will create a confusion that whether the transaction was made in Monday or in Tuesday. Okay, because the transaction was initiated on 11:55, but the transaction was completed on 12:05, right? So to avoid this kind of situation, basically what's happened, that during the 11:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. So in this example, you could say that 11:30 p.m. on Monday to 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Okay, so during this time period, half hour of Monday, okay, and half hour of Tuesday, the transactions will be hold. Okay, and then the transactions will be carry forward if initiated on Monday and will be processed on Tuesday. So if any transaction is to be made after 11:30 p.m. on Monday, this transaction will not be processed. Okay, and if any transaction is between, you can say, is made between 12 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, the transaction will not be proceed. Okay, so that's how the cutoff hours work. Okay, so if any transaction was made during this time, the transactions will be carry forward to the Tuesday or on the next day, and then will proceed. Okay, so that's how the system works. Got it? All right. So keep this thing in mind. So if we go by the technicality, or you can say if we look upon the technicality, so we could say not 24 hours. The RTGS basically works 3 hours, so 23 hours and the 30 minutes. Okay, because 30 minutes on the previous day and 30 minutes on the new day, the transaction is on hold. All right. Thereafter, the additional details. You may need to provide the additional details such as the recipient's account number, name and address. It is essential to double check all the details before initiating the RTGS transaction to ensure the accuracy and the avoidance of any errors. Why? Because this is also called as irrevocable. Okay, which means that if any information provided is wrong, the transaction will be either denied or you can say will be made into the wrong account. Thereafter, the eligibility check. Ensure that you meet the eligibility criteria for the RTGS, including having a bank account with internet banking facilities and the required funds for the transaction. Okay, required funds for a transaction, as we had discussed in the previous lectures also, like if you having the savings account and the current account. Okay, so if it's a saving accounts, what does it mean? It means that only available funds could be utilized. Okay, but if we talk about the current accounts, then we know credit could be granted as overdraft facilities available. Okay, so that's the reason. Log into internet banking. Log into your bank's internet banking portal using your like the username and password. Okay, initiate RTGS transaction. Navigate to the fund transfer section and select the option to make an RTGS payment. Okay, now we are talking about the procedure. Okay, so once you can say once you log in into your mobile application, second is your net banking. Once you enter there, then you are required to initiate the RTGS transaction. Okay, so for this you are required to go to the funds transfer section. Okay, select the option to make the RTGS payment. Okay, enter beneficiary details. Enter the beneficiary's bank account number, name and the IFSC code. The IFSC code is crucial for identify the recipient's bank branch in the RTGS system. Double check the details to ensure the accuracy. As we had discussed that if you are, you can say filling the IFSC code, then basically IFSC code along with account number is important to transfer the fund into the right account. Okay, so that you could understand, suppose if there are five Mr. X, or you can say five account holder of the same name in the bank ABC, okay, which having the branch in the Karol Bagh. Okay, so you could say that suppose this is you, Mr. Y. You are required to make the payment to Mr. X. Okay, so you could mention the Karol Bagh by using the IFSC code, but still the question you can say relies on the account number availability. Okay, because your account number will help the bank ABC to navigate the information and then transfer the amount into the right, you can say, candidature. For example, suppose you are required to pay the payment to this Mr. A, but somehow you have mentioned the IFSC code of Karol Bagh, but your account number is not for this one, but for this one. So what will happen? The bank will transfer the money to this Mr. X. But what will happen? This transaction is not the right transaction. Why? Because the transaction was supposed to be done to this Mr. X but happened to this Mr. X. Okay, that's why the beneficiary details is very, very important to be filled up in the correct manner. And the transaction amount to be transferred, note that there may be a minimum and maximum limit set by your bank for the RTGS transactions. Okay, so you could say there is no official limit, or you can say no common limit on the RTGS transaction. It's totally depend upon the banks which are providing RTGS transactions. All right, and that's what we have seen, that usually this is from 2 lakh to 5 lakh. Authorized transaction. Authorize the transaction using the authentication method provided by your bank, such as OTP or transaction password. We had already discussed in the IMPS section. Confirmation. Once that transaction is authorized, you will receive a confirmation message on the internet banking portal. Okay. Fund transfer. The bank will process the RTGS transaction immediately and the funds will be transferred to the recipient's account in the real time. It means that this is bank call XYZ, sender ABC, ABC, okay, and the receiver. All right. Once the process will carry on, the transaction will be made immediately. It means suppose if this person is transfer rupees 2 lakh. Okay. So once the you can say once the transaction is processed, so these amount will be debited immediately. Okay, and here this amount will be credited immediately. Okay, so this is called as a real time transaction. Okay, so keep this thing in your mind for the fund transfer method. Receipt. You will receive a receipt or confirmation of the transaction which can be saved by your records. Okay, because this is used for the settlement procedure. Like you could say, suppose if this is you, the sender, then your bank XYZ, this bank ABC, this is you, receiver. Okay? Okay, so this is the condition. Suppose you have initiated the transaction, okay, or as per the transaction, rupees 2 lakh have been debited, okay, and supposed to be credited here, okay. But what happened that the receiver claimed that the transaction is not received so far, okay. So what is it? It is a case of payment dispute. Why? Because the sender has claimed that he has sent the amount, but the receiver is claiming that he haven't received the amount, okay. So in such a scenario, basically payment receipts are used or utilized for settling down the issues, okay. It means that by showing the receipt, the sender can claim that he has transferred the amount, all right. And the receiver could also claim that he is not getting the reflection of transaction in his account, okay. So that's how the receipts help the both, okay. Recipient's bank, the recipient bank will receive the funds through the RTGS system and credit them to the beneficiary's account immediately, like we had also seen in the IMPS system. Like once the amount debited from the sender's account, the fund will be received by the recipient's bank, or you can say the receiver's bank, and then the recipient or the receiver's bank will transfer it to the right customer by analyzing the details provided from the sender about or for the receiver or beneficiary, okay. Thereafter, if we move forward, notification to the recipient. The recipient will receive a notification such as an SMS or email confirming the credit to their account, okay. Transaction complete. The RTGS transaction is completed in the real time and funds are transferred from your account to the recipient's account instantly. Minimum transaction amount. While there is no upper limit on the transaction that can be transferred using the RTGS, banks may have a minimum transaction amount up to rupees 2 lakhs. This minimum amount varies from bank to bank or between banks. Thereafter, you must have a bank account with a bank that is a member of the RTGS system. Most major banks in India are members of the RTGS network. internet banking facilities. You must have internet banking enabled for your bank account. This is necessary to initiate an RTGS transaction online. Funds availability. You must have sufficient funds in your bank account to cover the RTGS transaction amount and any associated fees. Transaction charges. Banks may charge a fee for the RTGS transaction. You should check with your bank for details of the transaction charges. Working hours, we had already discussed. Beneficiary details, we had discussed that we need the beneficiary bank's account number, name and the IFSC code to initiate an RTGS transaction. Purpose of transaction. RTGS basically used for the high value transaction as the minimum value starts from 2 lakh. The purpose of the transaction should be legitimate and compile with the regulations of the Reserve Bank of India because it's following the high amount. So students, basically in this lecture, we have finished with the RTGS. In the next lecture, we will start with an UPI. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the other lecture. Before ending this lecture, let me tell you one thing, that the UPI, which we are going to discuss in the next lecture, is totally different from NEFT, IMPS and the RTGS. Okay, so we will see about it in the next lecture. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the another lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say, thank you.